Hey guys, I'm Justin Blauert of Blauert Knives, and today I'm going to show you how to get the perfect retention on your Kydex sheath. So stay tuned to find out how. So let's talk about what we're going to need. So obviously we're going to need our knife. So this is a knife we have, Cayman. We're going to need some Kydex, maybe a ruler, a pencil, pen. We're going to need some tape. So I got some tape here. You have to be careful with this stuff sometimes though, because it will cause your blade to rust if you leave it on too long. So you want to get it pressed and get it on things. You're gonna need a press. If you don't have a press, there's some way to do that, some kind of foam, some way to squeeze it on. And then you're gonna need some way to heat it, whether a heat gun, toaster oven, all those kind of good stuff. So let's zoom in here and see what we got going on, and we'll get this thing done. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna lay our knife out on the Kydex to kind of get an idea of how much we're going to need. And since how the handle on this one is black and blue, I thought I would use black and blue for the sheath as well. So I like to have probably more than I really need to make the sheath, but when everything's hot and you're pressing it, sometimes it's hard to line it up, so it's good to have a little bit extra around there. It's a lot easier to cut it down than try to stretch it out, because it just doesn't work that way. So I've already had this one from a previous knife I've done, so I'm just gonna kind of draw out approximately the same amount onto this one, and then I'm gonna cut them out on the little portaband. So let's get that cut. All right, so my material is cut. So what I need to do now is I need to tape up this knife to give it a little bit of room. After we're done pressing, we can take tape up, give us a little bit of room inside the sheath so that we'll be able to pull it out. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I use 2 layers of tape on mine. I found that that's the amount that works best for me. I may have made this one too short. Yeah, it's too short. So I use 2 layers on both sides, and then as you're fitting it, if you want, you can take those layers off. I have found that the way I do it, you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to show you how I do it to get the perfect fit up. That's really simple, and you don't have to worry about it. So I'll take one of these fine X-Acto knives and come right up on the edge and just cut it out around it. And then I'll come right up here along the bolster or the front of the blade, and you gotta be real careful so you don't scratch the blade, but just kind of cut ever so careful. Just right up against your handle. Do that all the way around. This is kind of a monotonous part of making it. This is actually really important to get a good fit up. So just take your time. It'll be worth it. Like I said earlier, you have to be kind of careful with this painter's tape. You don't want to leave it on the blade a long time because it will etch the steel and it will cause it to rust if you're using like a high carbon, like this is 52-100. So just be mindful of that. If you can get a wide, like this is like what, like 2 or something, a wide electrical tape, that would work better. I just don't have any. So there's one layer there. I'm gonna put another one on this side, put 2 on this side, and then we'll be ready to press. So that's what I'm gonna do. We'll kind of speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing like that. All right, so we got our blade all wrapped up here. We got 2 layers on both sides. You hear the toaster oven's heating up. So I'm going to tell you now what you want to know is how do I get the perfect retention on my sheath. It's actually really quite simple. I use adjustable retention. If you've ever looked at some really nice holsters, like for pistols or things like that, they usually have an ability to adjust your retention. And I've found that over the years making Kydex sheaths for knives, it's really hard to get the perfect retention right away. Usually you have to play around with it, tweak it, heat it up, cool it down to get it to where it fits really well. It's not impossible, it just takes time. And so I've found that if I can make that adjustable, I don't have to worry about it as much. It's not as much of a factor, and I can adjust it at the end really quickly by just turning a screw. And it's perfect. The user can adjust it to however they like. So for this particular model, this is my Cayman. I've made a small little stand out here so that when I go to heat up the Kydex, it will leave a open area here so that if coming out of the sheath, this would get formed around this guard right here and would make it harder to pull out. So what I've done is I've made this little section here so that it will leave this material will only go down this far. So I've also drilled a hole there, so this is where my retention screw will go. And basically what it's doing is you're clamping on this outside portion here to adjust your tension. It's really simple, doesn't take that long. Like I said, I made this in 2 minutes. So once you see how it goes together, you might have to adjust things for the way you do them for your knives or things like that, or just anything. But it's super simple. I'll show you what materials I use. They're pretty readily available, but I'll show you how to do that. So the oven's heating up. Once we get that, we're gonna be pressing it in our press. Okay, so we have the toaster oven. It's set at 300 degrees. Got our press ready. Knife sitting there. You wanna make sure it's nice and floppy. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. You don't want it to press it cold because you won't get quite some of the definition that you want, but you don't want it to get too hot because it will actually start melting it. But let's say 300 degrees is about where I have found works good. So I got some gloves on. All right, I think this is ready. So put our knife down. Press it down nice and tight. All right, now we'll just let that sit for a few minutes. Okay, so we got the sheath cooled down. I pulled out this part right here. Now it's kind of fused together at this point from the heat. And this is what you want. So it's one piece at this moment. So I took my part out and I'm just going to mark where we want that hole. So you can see it right here. All right, and then we got a gap up here. See, there's a nice opening up. This is where our retention is going to come from. So what I want to do is I want to mark 1/2 inch all the way around the blade, because you can see the silhouette pretty well now. And this is what I kind of just draw sketch. And I use this as a guide when I'm cutting things out. I also help use it for laying out my eyelets. So some of this material up here will get cut off eventually. I'll leave it on there for now. It's real easy, just take it off later. But somewhere up here, what I like to do is kind of come in here so that I got, when you're going to hold the sheath, you got a spot to hold your thumb and hold on to the back, and gives you somewhere to push. So that's what I do here. So I kind of just draw that in the way I want, and I'll come in with a small wheel. And I know on this model how I've done them in the past, so I know about how high I like to come, and then I kind of just flow it all the way around. Now this isn't maybe necessarily exact right now, but that'll give me a pretty good idea of what I want to do. And then from here I'll mark out my eyelets at a 1 inch spacing, and I'll go ahead and I'll drill at least 2 of them in. That way these parts are then together, because if I take this apart now, you can put the eyelets in, but it's never going to be the same as it is right now, the way it's pressed. So that's another way you get a really good fit up. Make sure you drill and put at least 2 eyelets in before you take it apart, because it's never going to go back just quite the same way as it is right now. So, all right, so my marks are in. I got a 1/4 inch drill bit here for my 1/4 inch eyelets. I'm going to drill out these first 2, and then we're going to set the eyelets on those. So. Just go slow, it cuts real easy. All right, so now that we got those 2 things, I'm gonna go ahead and get our eyelets in. We'll rivet those in, and then we can take the knife out after that, and we don't need the knife anymore after this. Okay, so we have our eyelets in our sheath, and there's a small little setting thing. You take the finish side and you just put it right on there. Use your little tool and just tap. All right, so we have all our eyelets in, and I got our retention screw drilled. So I'm going to take this over to the saw and trim off some of this extra material that we don't need. Okay, so we have our sheath ground out roughly. So from this point on, I basically just do a lot of hand finishing. Just take it up on the belts and just sand it down to about 400. Use some Scotch-Brite pads, and then I'll show you how to make the edges look really nice. And then we'll fit our knife up and then adjust our retention and finish the sheath out. So. Okay, so at this point, we have everything up to 400 grit. From this point, what I like to do is kind of burnish the edges, kind of like you would do with leather. Now there's two ways to go about doing this. Usually sometimes with some fabric, so if you take it on your, just like jeans, you can burnish the edges, and that works actually surprisingly well. I mean, or what I like to do, I just have an antler, and you can do the same thing. You can just burnish, and that'll give you a nice polish. But when you get to this stage, you need to have taken all the scratches out from the previous ones, otherwise they will show up. They will show up really, really bad at this point. So just go around. You might have to go back in a few places. Sometimes it's here or here. It's kind of hard to get into as much. So that's what I do at this stage. So I'm just gonna finish this up and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So at this point, this is what it looks like. Now, you want to go back and clean out this sheath. There's a bunch of little bits of pieces that get inside there. You want to clean all that out really well before you stick your knife down there, wash it out, get all that out as much as you can, because you do not want that getting and scratching up your blade, especially if it's hand sanded. Now, if you don't like the way, like a high polish back, you can go back with something a little bit more abrasive, just like a finer Scotch-Brite or something, and then give you just kind of a satin. But I just take an oil and kind of get all my little pencil marks and all the little things on there and clean it out really well and dry it out before I do any kind of fitting after this. But at this point, the knife's pretty much done. The only thing I got to do is just put the knife in and adjust the retention. Okay, so I got the sheath dried out. What I'm gonna do, take my knife. So this screw right here, it just has like a washer standoff, and it's screwed in kind of a finish washer. I just put it together. So we're gonna see how our knife fits in here now. So it goes in. There's a little bit of a wiggle. So all you have to do, just tighten the screw a little bit, still a little bit, tighten it just a little bit more, and maybe one more time. All right, and so now there's no wiggle whatsoever. So that's how you do it. That's how it's done. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe.
and stay tuned to further videos. Thank y'all.